Well, we want to build on the successes of the first meeting with the energy retailers just 3 weeks ago, where they agreed to remove any restrictions and penalties on over 100,000 Australians who are on hardship programs, and where they agreed to notify customers when they are coming off a discount offer. They were significant commitments from the companies just 3 weeks ago. We're putting a set of new proposals to the companies at the meeting today, including asking them to write to the nearly 1 million customers who are on the more expensive standing offer and to provide them with alternatives for a better deal. We also want to ensure that customers can move more freely and quickly between retailers to ensure that they can capitalise on some of the major savings that are available to them.
Do you concede, though, this is a band-aid solution in the context of the broader energy policy which needs more certainty?
Not at all. This is a key area of focus for the government, and one where the savings to households can be enormous. We know that around 50% of households have not moved retailers or contracts in the last 5 years, even though they can benefit to the tune of $1,000 or more by doing so. So we really want to empower Australian families to make an informed choice about their retailer and their contract in order to get the big savings available to them.
So you want them to write to customers by the end of the year?
That's one of the commitments that we would like to secure from the companies today, but there are a whole range of other initiatives that we are putting forward. In the United Kingdom, customers can go onto their bill and scan a barcode which has their consumption data and their payment data, and then put it into their smartphone and automatically get comparisons with other better deals in the market. That is a technological change that we would like to see here in Australia, and we'll also be discussing that with the companies today.
When I referred to it as a band-aid solution, it's the reason I guess I put that to you is this fear within the industry. You talk to senior people in the industry and they're saying they need certainty in the context of the clean energy target if they're going to invest. So therefore, if there's not the investment, the prices don't come down, do they?
Well, we have seen record investment in renewables in 2016 compared to the year prior, and one of the reasons for that was the renewable energy target. We have also adopted in record time 49 out of the 50 Finkel recommendations, which will make a difference to the stability of the system, and we got the support of the states and the territories for that. We're also putting in place the abolition of the ability of the poles and wire companies to game the system, which can save consumers billions of dollars. There is no silver bullet to reducing power prices. That's why we're taking action on all fronts. Obviously, the clean energy target is one of the key recommendations out of the Finkel report, which the government continues to consider. But bearing in mind that Dr. Finkel himself intended that a clean energy target would come in from 2020, which is more than 2 years away.
But it's also, while it's 2 years away, we're talking about assets of 30, 40, 50 years. So they need that certainty now. The question is, will you be able to strike that balance between a clean energy target that gets your party across the line, but still placates Labor sufficiently to ensure this is not just going to be another political football?
Well, my job is not to placate Labor. In fact, they're the cause of many of the problems that we are seeing in the energy market today. On their watch, electricity prices doubled, Kieran, and we saw the poles and the wire prices go up enormously, and of course that dreaded carbon tax, which was a $15 billion hit to Australian families, and when we removed it, we saw the single biggest drop in electricity prices ever recorded in this country. The Labor Party wants to sell out coal-fired power stations and all the workers in it, and as a result they will drive prices higher. they have a very high, unrealistic and reckless emissions reduction target, which even they don't know the full cost to the economy which that will bring. So my job is not to placate them at all. My job is to get the balance right in order to produce the best, most affordable, reliable system for the Australian people.
But you would concede that the energy chiefs and those within the industry more broadly would prefer a situation where there's a bipartisanship here, as opposed to this being the subject of a fight as it has been over the last decade and led to, as much as you argue there's investment, there's also been a lot of paralysis in this industry, particularly when it comes to, as we've seen right now, the shortfalls in gas.
Well, you're right to point to the issue of gas, because that has been a driver of higher prices as of late. And back in 2012, when Labor was in government, they were warned, but ignored those warnings about the impact that having such large exporters of LNG on the East Coast would do to both the prices and the stability of the market. Now we have Labor state governments in Victoria. We're also seeing the Northern Territory Labor government put bans and moratoriums on the development of their gas reserves. And that is ensuring that we don't have sufficient supply in the domestic market to meet both our export contracts as well as our domestic needs. And that's why we've taken the very difficult decision as a government to put in place restrictions on our gas exports to ensure Australians have what they need and to ensure that we have a more stable, affordable domestic energy system.
One of the components of the clean energy target that's been looked at is that potentially you might look to weaken the CET as proposed by Finkel. He's just referred to renewables. Obviously, the expectation is that you would bring in coal and gas. In that context, today the Conservation Foundation is warning against the government diluting the CET, saying that it will already struggle to meet its purpose. What do you say in response to that report released today?
Well, the Australian Conservation Foundation and many other groups like it are focused predominantly on reducing emissions, whereas I'm focused on the affordability and the reliability of our system, while also staying true to our international commitments at Paris. Many people said, including Daniel Andrews in Victoria, that when you closed Hazelwood, it would have a minimal impact on price. Well, the reality is those companies like AGL and Energy Australia have increased power bills for Victorians by more than $130, and the closure of Hazelwood was a large part of that. So I think we have to be very careful in how we move forward on the issue of coal. And of course, gas is another source of thermal generation, baseload power, which can help stabilise the system. And one of the key recommendations out of Finkel, when you talk about the clean energy target, was to be technology neutral, not to put all, the chips in the basket of renewables, but in fact to look for emissions reduction and power generation from all sorts of energy.
That's fine, but as you know, depending on where the benchmark for emissions is set, that would nullify some power sources. So you can be technologically agnostic, but if you depending on where you set in the benchmark within the CET, that will dictate what succeeds, what doesn't.
Look, that is obviously a relevant factor, but even Dr. Finkel himself said the baseline was not the most critical point. It was about what would be the energy mix going forward, what it would mean for dispatchability, what it would mean for price, and what it would mean for emissions reduction.